So welcome, Sally, to the For the Love of Group Fitness podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me.
It's nice that we're going to have a chat. So for our listeners, they some of them we know you might not necessarily think of you in a group fitness setting. So do you want to just kind of let people know a little bit in a nutshell, your background and your connection with group fitness?
Yeah, sure. So my first group fitness experience was teaching. I can't remember if it was aerobics or spinning. I think it might have been aerobics back in 1998, and in the last century, and I absolutely loved it. I loved the energy of the group and that kind of feedback loop you get of the energy from you to them and them to you. So really enjoyed that, and just continued doing that for quite a long time, several years, until I discovered yoga. And my first training was with you, as you know, Auntie, in I think it was 2003. Found my old certificate the other day, the original one.
Did you?
Yeah, pathway to yoga, and you had that lovely little wax stamp on it, like So I still got it. Yeah, so 2003, and then from then on, I taught mainly group fitness within the realms of yoga and Pilates.
Group
Still
classes,
doing. Still got a deep love for spinning. So I'm not teaching it at the moment, but I do hope to get back to it. But that was my last fitness-based class to drop before going complete full-time in predominantly yoga, but also a little bit of Pilates. And it's still, even though I run other stuff now, trainings and write a lot, etc., teaching a group fitness class is still my favorite thing. It's just such a laugh, and you never know what you're going to get. Especially I do the cover, and it's always hilarious, even if I'm just laughing on the inside. It's just something will happen. I think maybe I attract it. I don't know.
Because I remember. Do you remember LA Fitness in Luton?
Yes, I remember it very well. Very well, yes. I worked there for quite a while.
Yeah, because I remember you teaching spinning there, I'm sure.
I loved the bikes. So the pulse bikes were so good. I loved those classes so much. So much.
Because the studio was upstairs, wasn't it?
Yeah, on Friday night we'd be packed out, especially by just banging house music. I remember one summer night, it was so hot in there. I remember I couldn't see properly, had sweat coming out my eyes, and the doors open and the music blaring out, across Luton. And I have really fond memories of that place. It was a lot of fun, and it was a great team I worked in as well. They were so funny, so funny. Yeah, it was
a really good club, wasn't it? And then I think it then got taken over.
Yeah,
and then it kind of just lost its way. Yeah,
it lost its vibe. Yeah, because there were two. It was Daryl and Daisy had it to start with in partnership with LA Fitness. And Daryl was a hardcore bodybuilder, so he understood the vibe, and she was quite flamboyant. I don't know if you remember Daisy, and big personality, and teach a lot of the group fitness. And they were big characters, so it was really fun. And Daryl was a very kind, big guy, wasn't he? Big guy, but he was a very kind person. And then got took over by someone else.
I can't remember what happened. It was no longer LA Fitness, though, was it? It was a different.
Yeah, I'd moved on by then, so I'm not sure what became of it. I'm not sure. I don't know.
Yeah, no. So talking about group fitness, I walked out. After it got taken over, there was a real issue with instructors getting paid and stuff.
Oh,
and so and I turned up one day for my class at the reception. You walk in a reception, and I just said, and I just asked, are you going to pay? And no one could answer me, so I went, see ya. I wasn't going to teach anymore because it was like months worth of pay that they were owing. But it wasn't just me, it was other people as well.
And actually I worked for that gym elsewhere later on, and I never got paid. So there was a big issue. Yeah. That seemed to be pretty normal back then. You had to chase your money. What is that about?
I know. So this is the thing, right? And then you got instructors that are kind of like doing it because we love group fitness so much that we just go, it's all right.
No one goes into it for money. You just have to love it.
So what is it? What is it that you say, you love, that you say it's just crazy? Is it the vibe? Is it the people?
I
What
just
what
really
is
like
it?
people. I'm really interested in people. I'm quite nosy. I'm interested in their backstory. I like because the human body is so complex, there's always something intriguing going on with it. So,
Mm,
I did quite a lot of cover over Christmas, mainly to get away from my children for an hour. And some headspace, go to work for a rest. And, one class I taught, 5 people had physical challenges, out of like
mm,
12. So then I have to really think, and I'm really think about how to adapt and what's going on with them and how to make them feel that they should still be in the class. And
mm,
that's when it becomes teaching as opposed to instructing, I think, isn't it?
mm,
And I really like that because then I'm very present. I'm very present,
mm,
and the hour just flies by. And one lady, she actually came back to another cover class I was doing because she felt with the adaptations I gave her, she could actually do it, whereas before she'd felt that she had to sit out quite a lot.
mm,
So that's very rewarding, and she looked a lot happier the second time around. She seemed a bit more she was in quite a lot of pain with her spine. So
mm,
things like that are fun, and just monotony just kills my soul. So if I know what I'm getting every time I teach, I just find that very, very hard. So if I don't know what I'm
mm,
getting, I find that much more interesting and more fun.
mm, mm.
And it's just different. It's just different every time, isn't it? When you teach group fitness, it's just it's just a lot of fun. It's just a lot of fun, and you're moving. I love
Yeah.
movement. You'll see how much I fidget in this next hour. I love movement, so it's kind of I think better when I'm moving too. My brain flows better, so it's just
Mm,
an enjoyable hour.
mm.
That I feel lucky to be doing as well.
Have you ever taught yoga in, because like I see, I've never taught yoga, I don't think, in a yoga studio setting. So I've
Okay,
always taught it in a health club or leisure center setting, which in some ways I feel I've gone to participate in classes in yoga studio,
yeah,
and there's a different vibe.
very
Do
different.
you, so what, do you prefer one over the other? What, what's the vibe for you?
Um, I. uh, I've taught in a lot of yoga studios, and I've
Yeah.
done, I've done well out of it. And
Mm,
one particular studio I worked at in London for quite a long time. I had quite a big following there. I was quite. I think my USP was teaching beginners, so I had a lot of beginners come, and then they would progress to stronger classes.
mm,
They felt ready. So I really loved that. But I did feel, especially when I participated in classes at said studio and other studios as well, actually, that I just felt the classes were too strong for the people in front of the instructor,
oh, that's
the
interesting.
teacher. I just felt the ranges of movement were too big, adaptations weren't being offered. It was a matter of going harder or go home. You don't expect that so much in yoga, but it was definitely very prevalent in the studios that I taught at. But this was quite a while ago. This was like in the late noughties. So
Mm,
up to 2010 is when I moved out of London. So I do think it's changed. There's more on offer now. We've got more yin, we've got more restorative yoga, more calm types of yoga. The scene was pretty hardcore when I was
mm,
like teaching full time. I used to teach between 20 and 25 classes a week, depending on,
mm,
I was picking up cover as well. So I teach quite a lot of different places, but there were 2 studios I taught in mainly, and the classes were pretty full on. And what I find with the more gym-based class is that the teachers, and maybe it's because they teach other disciplines, that they seem to be very good at adaptations and being more
right.
inclusive, which I find ironic because a lot of purist yoga teachers knock gym yoga, talk down about it, which I just find quite interesting because actually I from what I've seen, they're actually more inclusive on yeah, in general, not always, but in general,
Mm,
than some yoga studios, especially the ones where it's set sequence and very, very purist and very traditional yoga.
yeah.
As you know, NC, yoga originally was, women weren't even allowed to do it. And if you look back to the history of yoga, which I suggest everyone does if they're a yoga practitioner, and certainly if they're a teacher, So therefore, we know that, the main following of yoga in the UK is largely women. I don't know what the percentage is, but it's massively women, so the postures don't actually fit the body, the female form, because we're more rounded. Our pelvis is different, our ranges of movement are different, we're more prone to hypermobility, etc., and back problems, especially in the West. So things are not adapted accordingly when yoga is taught in a very, very traditional manner. And although I want to honour, when I'm teaching, I want to honour the tradition of yoga, because otherwise it doesn't have any context and it can kind of get lost. You're just kind of making shapes on a yoga mat and maybe breathing here and there if you're lucky.
If you're lucky.
That's also all right. But, I think it's nice to have a bit of context. However, if the teacher isn't aware of how to adapt or why you should adapt for that particular participant or student, then we can get into problems, I think, with regards to injuries and just overworking, increased cortisol, adrenaline levels, etc., which we know. I teach predominantly women now. It's actually not helpful to work on the same level all the time, at the same level of intensity. We need to adapt as we go through not only the month for menstrual cycles, but also just in general, because we have the longer cycles too, perimenopause, menopause, pregnancy, postnatal, if you go down that route, fertility, endometriosis, there's so many things we need to adapt for. So I feel like I've gone a bit of a tangent. I feel like we need to be very open to adaptations, I guess, is what I'm getting to, especially when the main following in the UK of yoga is women, is a female participant. And with gym yoga, I feel the yoga tends to be a bit more gentle because it seems to be less traditional, which I think, it on the surface, if you're purist yogi, that doesn't seem like a good thing. But actually, from what I've seen, it creates quite a lot less injury and less stress. So I think there's arguments for both sides of that. But I do enjoy teaching in both, in purist, more purist yoga studios and gyms. They're just different vibes. I'll teach in a different way. I'll use different language. I don't tend to use Sanskrit when I'm teaching in gym because I don't know what I'm on about in general.
Yeah.
I might drop the odd one in, but if I'm in a studio, I would use more. I would expect the students to know some. And so I'll adapt. I'll teach in different ways. So it's nice to mix it up, definitely. Yeah, but I do enjoy the gym environment. Maybe that's because it feels like home to me, because it was my first experience of wellness here in the gym. Yeah.
And I think the gym people come when they come for yoga class, etc. It's for a different reason, I think, right? Than people perhaps
I just want to stretch out.
Going to a yoga studio. Yeah, they want to stretch out. They want a bit of relaxation. I think it's definitely a different crowd, and I'm more comfortable there as well because of my background. It's like I understand how they think. As being a participant in a yoga studio, I love. But then I think if someone said to me, Ansi, will you teach at the yoga studio in Bristol? I'll be like, I don't know.
I'm lucky to have you.
So your years in, obviously, started off in the group fitness field. What would you, if you think back, what's the craziest thing you've done for the love of group fitness?
There's so many. I was thinking about this. There's so many little things. I mean, I've oh my God. Well, the amount I used to teach was, when I look back, I don't really know how I did it. I used to drink a lot of espresso. I'd be up and out by 6 a.m. and I would return home quite a lot of evenings about 9 p.m. And I would just kind of belt around the city teaching, classes and one-to-ones. And so that in itself was a bit much, really. It makes me just a bit tired. Actually makes me feel quite sick thinking about it because I don't know what I'm doing. So that in itself was kind of wild. I've done all sorts. I mean, I have ADHD, so I do make mistakes, and I get confused quite often. I have turned up to places where I'm not teaching. I've not turned up to places where I'm supposed to be teaching. I've done that a couple of times. I guess the wackiest story I've got is I've run a lot of yoga retreats, and one got raided.
It got raided?
It got raided by the police. because it was down here. I'm in West Sussex right now. It was near here. They'd had a tip off that I was running a cult. I'm not, you know me, I'm not controlling. You have to be very controlling to do that. I don't have the energy. So they turned, it was like 10 at night. All my guests were in bed. Me and the cook were just clearing up. We hear this knock on the door, and we're in the middle of it was this 16th century house in the middle of nowhere. So it's pitch black. There's no, there's no street light or anything. It's like down this windy country lane. It's really hard to find. And the house is kind of wonky. Like the ceilings are really low.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful house. Lucian Freud actually has stayed there, and one of his old paintings was found in the loft when the lady who owned it at that time was went up there. So she found one of his paintings. So it's a really interesting background. And they turned out, and these three police officers were just standing at the door. It's pitch black behind them, and they said, we've got to search your property. There's a missing person, and we've been informed you're running are you Sally Parks? And they had my name and everything. So I had to get everyone up. They searched all the rooms, and they were looking for a particular person who'd apparently been embroiled in this cult. So I just thought it was a mistake. Obviously it was a mistake, but it did turn out actually. So they left after about half an hour. But the one police officer I remember he was ready to lynch me. He was I was not getting good energy from him at all. He was quite angry, and he just bowled in, and he was ready to hoik me off. So I had to kind of send him calming vibes, yeah, sure, I'll get everyone up, we'll do whatever you need, that kind of thing, because he was ready to roll, and so I had to get one up. They searched the property, and they said, oh yeah, I just heard she's not here, and then they just left, and that was it. But I later learned that they thought I was running this big operation, and it turned out there actually was one in the area. So it wasn't they'd got completely wrong information; it just wasn't me, and that a vulnerable person had got embroiled in it, and that's who they were looking for. So that was kind of the weirdest thing that happened. I used to ring my mum on a Monday after she goes, "What happened this time?" She'd be ready for her next episode. Yeah. One lady at a retreat went out for a cigarette, and she actually got locked out. It was actually the same place. It was kind of cursed. The same place, and she had to sleep in the barn. She slept on a bale of hay because she couldn't get back in. No one could hear her knocking. Luckily, she saw the funny side of it. She was a very funny lady, but she never returned. And then just kind of in general classes, just people just randomly getting up and leaving, halfway through. You're like, oh, okay, bye then. I've walked in before and someone's gone, oh, and walked out,
yeah,
or whatever. And I'm like, oh, okay. You have to have quite thick skin doing this, don't you? For people burst into tears halfway through. I've had someone faint. I've had someone had a stroke. And we're not really selling this career to anyone, are we? So yeah, wild stuff. I've broken down on the way to classes, had to leave my car there and got a taxi because I was like, this class has to happen. I got there. I've had a punch. I used to cycle a lot, and got a punch, and I remember just dumping my bike. I'll come back to it later. And I ran the rest of the way, and I remember just getting there being covered in sweat, and I didn't have another top. And I just remember being really embarrassed because I was just covered, and I just remember someone commenting that I was like Tony Blair, which was very insulting. So it's just kind of been a bit of a manic career, which is ironic as I'm teaching yoga, but it hasn't been dull. And then I've traveled a lot as well. I had one lady at a retreat actually. I actually really liked her for doing this in a weird way. I could see her getting more and more stressed with the yoga. It just because she just had stuff coming up, what it's like. And then she just walked across the room, and there was this vase in the corner, and she just got it. She lifted it up and just threw it. And then came back on her mat, and she went, "I'm sorry about that." And then she was fine. Fine after that. She just needed to do it. I was like,
did the vase shatter? No,
weirdly it didn't. I was like, oh no, it didn't shatter. And I was like, it's fine, because I kind of got it. It. She actually reminded me of my mum, this sort of thing my mum would have done. So I was like, whatever. Yes. Whereas everyone else was like, oh, you know, like it was the worst thing ever. But she was all right. She was just really stressed. And I kind of liked her for getting it out and done, really.
Yeah.
Had it broken, you know, she didn't know it was not going to break. So it kind of wasn't okay, really. But,
Yeah.
you know, whatever. I've actually had... This is how I work really hard on my retreats to make sure they're, you know, they're pretty seamless. And I've run over 200 retreats, so I know what I'm doing. But I still get people not enjoying them. And so I'm just sharing this because, you know, if anyone's watching, they're thinking about doing workshops or retreats or anything, still do it. But you will just know you will always get someone that won't like what you do. I had one lady go home, and she left very abruptly. Her and her husband very abruptly halfway through. I'd paid for this really good cook to come in. We had this really lovely food. I was thinking, you know, I planned all my classes and everything. We had this luxury venue. And then Monday morning, I get the longest email I've ever seen, full of bullet points and how I can, the word she used, improve my product. And for what they'd paid, they were getting so much for their money. And, you know, I did respond, but that was quite heartbreaking, actually. Now I just think, I'd probably just, go, thanks for feedback, goodbye. But actually, I was fairly new to it at the time. I think I'd only been running retreats about 5 years, which to me is still quite new. So it did upset me for quite a few days because it was, I mean, she was tearing into me. But I've never quite understood how people think that's okay, especially when I haven't invited feedback in, to kind of tear someone to shreds like that, who's clearly working very hard to help you have a really nice time for a very good price. I mean, my prices are not high end, and I still find that quite hard, but I'm better at taking it now.
Do you know, it makes me wonder, like you mentioned earlier on, that, you know, this in the industry as a whole, certainly yoga, and if we look at group fitness as well, it's largely women, isn't it? Women who participate and women who are teaching. And it sometimes makes, I was listening to someone once, I think one of my coaches, or I can't remember now, and they were saying that women, like if it was a man running it, they wouldn't act up like that. And I kind of makes me wonder, is it like I've had taken a lot of shit as well, you know, and you just think, really, you know, why would you do that? And it's not nice, isn't it? It's like, okay, bring awareness to something, fair enough, that we can improve on, but to actually tear into somebody, it's like it gets really nasty and bitchy, and you think, why?
I find it very odd. I find some women in business, I find it very odd. I find that very odd. I mean, I have moments where I've got hypercritical, but it's my problem. I know I know now, I probably didn't know at the time, but I know now it's when I've got, you know, really out of balance, sort of energetically, and I've worn myself down. I get this hypercritical mode I can go into, but now I'm kind of check myself. I think, right, hang on a minute. Hey, that person, you know, I have to have a talk, take myself off from school and have a talk with myself, because that person's acting no different to what they normally do. But so if a behaviour's changed and it's you know, and it's mine, then that's my problem, right? So, but I didn't have that awareness when I was younger. But I've never written an email with loads of bullet points to someone I didn't even know when they've done exactly what they said on the tin, which I always do. You know, that's my business. I will give you what I say on the tin. I never miss things out. People always get what they pay for, and sometimes they'll get even more. So I find that quite hard. But yes, the criticism has always been. I mean, my client base is nearly all women, but the criticism has always been women, and I find that really challenging. But I also know these things can come up for people when they are potentially not very well themselves, not necessarily sick, but there's some imbalance going on, some chemical imbalance. So.
Yeah, I try and remind myself that, you know, that they're probably going through stuff right at the time, and you just happen to be there, and I've just obviously triggered something in them. But I mean, if you kind of look at, you know, the positive side and the love of group fitness, there's always the other side as well. With anything, there's always the other side of the coin. And, some of the stuff that we've had to put up with, from management, from participants, from clients, it's, it makes it an interesting journey, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think so. And, my mum used to say this too, like sometimes, she used to have a lot of strangers. She'd be just sort of waiting at the bus stop and people just start telling her stuff. And I seem to attract that too. And I think sometimes it's just easier to share something with someone who's a stranger, or project your stuff at that person who's a stranger. Because even though you spend a weekend with them doing a retreat, whatever, you're still a stranger. They don't know you. They know business you, hopefully, if you haven't overshared. But it's just easier to project than actually deal with the issue. There might be an issue at home or something like that. And sometimes it is because the facilitator hasn't been very good at their job. Sometimes feedback is very valid. And whenever I do get some criticism, because I had some a month ago about a training I gave. I had 20 odd students and one wasn't happy about it with the content. And some of the feedback I disregarded, but there were certainly one or two valid points. I thought, actually I could work. At first I was really taken aback. Some of the language used was pretty harsh, actually. However, there were 2 points she made. I thought, okay, I'll take those and work with those. And I thanked her for the. I would rather have not had it. My ego would rather have not had it. However, I have taken a couple of things she said, and I'll be bringing that into the next training. So there is always something in there, but I think it's good for people to know, anyone watching this that teaches, that sometimes it is more about them. In fact, more often than not, it's more about the person giving the feedback, giving the feedback. I had one lady actually at a retreat just kind of she goes, may I talk with you? And I just, here we go. And she's, first of all, I was in the middle of something. I was in the middle of helping with food, so I was quite busy. So that's a lack of awareness there. And I was like, oh, okay. And then she have a seat. This is at my retreat. Have a seat. And then she lectured me on the differences of Pilates and yoga, and how I should be explaining it to people and teaching it. And I was just sitting there going, huh? It was very odd. And she went on and on and on. And it was obviously been bugging her since she arrived, and that was interesting. And now I would be like, I would have stopped it. I was much, I was younger, and it was quite a long time ago, so I wasn't quite ready for it. But now I'm so used to things like that. I'd be like, thank you, I'll take that on board. Goodbye. Yes. I don't know.
So you have one foot, obviously, you've got a love of group fitness. You've come from a fitness background, and you've got your other foot firmly in the world of yoga. Where do you see those two industries going in the future?
Yeah, well, I think the yoga industry is going through a bit of a funny time at the moment. Funny as in a bit weird. I'm struggling. I'm just going to be completely honest. I'm struggling a little bit with teaching yoga currently, because it seems to be since COVID, when people had a bit more time on their hands. My current perception of it is that it's gone hypercritical. In that you can only say certain things and teach certain things if you're a certain colour, for example. That's I don't know if you've noticed that too, Nancy. And it's making me feel quite, I feel like I'm questioning what I'm teaching a lot more than I was. I was quite happy to just teach more traditional yoga with adaptation, as I mentioned before, and say namaste at the end of class. And again, I'm and use Sanskrit, etc. And I'm open for discussion on that. However, when I'm just struggling with that a little bit. The issue is at the moment is that if you're white and you're teaching yoga, it's cultural appropriation. So that's the kind of current theme I keep picking up on Facebook in different groups and stuff. I've actually removed myself from it now, because I do what I, the conclusion I've come to is I do what I do. And if I'm, if I make sure I mention my teachers that I've learned from, and I've been to India, I have studied in earnest. It's not like I learned on YouTube and now I'm posing as a yoga teacher. I have studied an awful lot and very hard to do what I do. So, but it has left me feeling a little bit awkward with regards to what I can say and what I can post on social media, and if I should even be teaching it all. So I've been through a whole journey through that, but I think I'm just basically going to crack on.
Do you think it's as a parent here? Because I notice it more with the Americans, you know, like across the pond, with the cultural appropriation thing. As you know, I mean, there are, you know, I do see it here, but it seems to be like really crazy on the other side.
Yeah, I have noticed it over there as well. I've over the last year or so, I've just kind of removed myself from a lot of discussion about it, not because I'm choosing to be ignorant, but I was just finding I wasn't enjoying teaching, and then that's not fair on the people that have chosen to study with me because the energy wasn't right.
Yeah.
And there's an awful lot of talk as well about body positivity, which I'm all
Yes.
for. But again, I'm struggling with that a little bit as well, because we know from our background, as in you know, sports science and women's health, etc., that certain to choose my words carefully, you know, certain health issues will come up if someone's BMI is very, very high. So, but body positivity is being, you know, is being more and more talked about, and no matter what shape and size you are, that's great and that's wonderful. Crack on with your life, but you know we have the research, etc. That if someone is making certain lifestyle choices, that their life might be shorter. Let's just say how it is, or have more complications. And same as well, of course. And this is where the body positivity movement we have at the moment is really helpful. Someone that's very underweight may also, of course, have an awful lot of health issues too. So it's finding that healthy point for everyone, isn't it? I'm really glad everyone's being represented better now, because when I started in yoga, it was just very, very slim white people and all the covers of the magazines and all the adverts, etc. And I know in my marketing I did that too, because it just happened to be I had photos of me, so I used them. I didn't want to take other people's photos because that's not okay either. That, you know, I had to check myself in COVID and go, hang on a minute, my marketing does actually look like I'm putting a certain message across that I don't actually want to put across. So I'm trying to be a bit more inclusive. You know, I invested in a lot of stock photos, etc. recently to make it a bit more inclusive. But I've found that quite hard too, in that I'm like, can I use photos of myself? Is that okay? You know, I've just been questioning quite a lot about that. So yeah, there's been a lot of questioning at the moment, and it's made me feel quite uncomfortable. But being uncomfortable is too sometimes, because you know you stop and check yourself, and what you're actually doing, and what is the message you're actually putting out there. But I do have an issue with, you know, posting extremes of certain lifestyle choices, because it's I just think that also could be damaging. I don't know what your thoughts are.
No, I think see, it's really interesting. So when I entered the fitness industry, I was the only Asian, like from the whole of Asia. Like that's a whole nother term. Like I never understood why in this country, in the UK, Asian refers to the South Asian population.
It's weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
Asia's kind of big. It's not very specific.
Oh, so but anyway, it was, you know, I was from a Malaysian, and you know, when I entered the group fitness industry, when I entered Les Mills, like I was the only one, you know, and you kind of but I never thought anything of it though. This is the thing.
Yeah,
I never thought anything. You know, I had the normal stuff that I think we all have in terms of questioning my own ability.
yes,
But I never.
that's a good thing.
If you kind of, I wonder, so I'm just wondering now, I'm not saying anything, you know, just talking to you, that whole, sometimes what you project is what you get. But because I never projected the whole I'm different, I just, you know, I've done the test, like I've done the test so far about unconscious bias and stuff, and I'm unconsciously biased towards Caucasians. But then that
Okay.
makes sense because I live in the UK.
Yeah.
I've chosen to live here amongst, you know. amongst a white population,
Yeah.
right? Um, but if I think back then, I never saw myself as different, and I just really thought, I am very proud the fact that I've got where I've got because of my ability.
Yeah.
I've never slept with anybody to get somewhere. It happens in the
Oh, shame.
industry. Well, but not for
Yeah.
career progression, if you see what I mean. Like
Yeah, that used to be
where
really
you just stop
prevalent too, didn't it?
younger.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Probably.
but I never. Yeah, I just never, because I didn't treat people differently, and I didn't expect to be treated
Yes.
differently. I never really experienced that. And if there were
Yeah.
jobs that I didn't get, then there were jobs that I didn't get. You know,
Yeah. And you just,
um,
yeah,
I
maybe you
never
just
thought.
weren't.
I mean, it does. The whole appropriation thing is something that I've thought a lot about. Like
It's
personally, well,
tricky,
you
isn't
did my
it?
pathway to yoga. I don't. I tend not to use Sanskrit. Not because I don't enjoy it, but I'm teaching in an environment, especially in a gym environment, like you said earlier on, that they don't know anyway what it
Yeah.
means. So, um, like I did martial arts in Malaysia, right? I did taekwondo in Malaysia. It's a Korean martial art, and we were all taught in English. So I know things as a side kick, a front kick, a knife hand block. Then I come to the UK and I go to a taekwondo class and it's all taught in Korean. And I'm like,
That's hilarious.
I've got my black belt and I haven't got a clue what's going on in the class.
Wow.
I had no clue, because for me, if you're going to use those words, like from a, Sanskrit or whatever, you've got to show it the respect and pronounce it properly.
Yes. Yeah.
If you can't, then just don't. Because to me, that's worse. So when people, like when they're doing, or like sometimes I walk up to a meeting, a networking meeting, and they're like, "Oh, do you speak English? Where are you from?" And I'm like,
Oh, that's
where am I
uncomfortable.
from? Like this morning, or am I from like,
Wow.
originally? I still get that today. And then they're like,
Wow.
"Oh," and then they'll try and speak like Chinese to me or Malay, and I
Oh,
look at them and I
oh
haven't
no.
seriously haven't got a clue what they're saying, because the enunciation is incorrect,
It's so bad. Yeah.
so it doesn't make any sense. So just speak English to me.
Just speak English. Yeah. Wow. Okay, that's made me squirm a bit. Uh,
But it's it's across
but I
the
mean, it also
board. And
doesn't surprise me either. Yeah.
no, but then, like, I think, okay, if you're talking about appropriation, then it goes right across the board, really, into the world, into martial arts, Japanese,
Yeah.
Korean, whatever martial arts. It goes into Tai Chi, Qigong,
Mm, yeah.
and all of that as well. So where does it stop?
Yeah.
I think, is pizza in England an appropriation of what pizza is like in
Well,
Italy?
probably because it's completely different. Completely
Or
different. We
curries?
call it pizza, and it's not really, is it? When you actually look at like a beautiful pizza made in Florence or something, it's very, very different. So we've just kind of ruined it. I do love pizza though. So
I know.
so yeah, it's a tricky one, isn't it? With appropriation, I think it's good. A lot of yoga teachers have been made aware of it, and it's certainly something to consider. But it's I mean, I considered stop teaching it completely during lockdown, because I thought I just don't. My heart's kind of coming out of this now because I'm analysing every little thing I say and do, and also just by teaching class, does that make me racist? So I was quite confused for quite a long time about it, but I've decided to keep going and just make sure I'm trying to mention my
Your
teachers who I've learned
teachers.
from
Mhm.
more often, and on social, tag them and whatever, and refer back to, rather than more recent yoga books, refer back to the more classic texts that I learned from, etc. Just so it's more within the lineage of yoga. But then when I'm teaching, because I want to be inclusive, I am also adapting. So and modifying postures, etc. And encouraging people to honour their bodies. So I've got this kind of a little bit of friction there going
But
on, I suppose,
then,
in my own head.
yeah, but then you see, like for me, I guess I'm quite lucky because my lineage of yoga training is literally Paul Harvey, Desikachar, Krishnamacharya is
Right.
one
Yeah.
lineage, right? And that is what I've chosen to stay with, and that's what I've chosen to respect. But I've also been in talks with Desikachar talking, and he's saying, well, the whole point of Krishnamacharya's teaching is that he adapted to suit the individual.
Right. Okay.
Like Pattabhi Jois, or he when he taught, Western women, you weren't allowed to do that in the days, but he had to because the body is different, the anatomy is different, right? The function is
Yeah.
different. So if he was doing it back then, so what is So I don't know, but yeah, like I don't know. I don't use namaste. I never have. I have it if I have it if an Indian person says it to me. So it's like
Okay.
if I go to Thailand and then the Thai person says sawadika, then I will say that in return. But if
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
teaching at the gym and there's all English people, I'm not. Why would I? Because namaste is not in my language anyway. I'm
Yeah.
Malaysian, Chinese. Do you see what I mean? It's just so then I've never felt comfortable using it.
Yeah.
So
I guess you have to go
um
with what's comfortable. I guess my issue is when people are having a go at Sanskrit and saying namaste and all that, but they have they have no idea about it. Or one of my things is when teachers talk about chakras, but in class, when knowing no one has any idea what they are or what they do or what they stand for, and
mm,
they probably don't know either, but they're throwing it in because they're yoga teachers, they
they
think they
want,
should.
yeah,
Ultimately they think they're doing the best for everyone, so there's that. They're just trying to do a good job, of course, which I think needs to be acknowledged. But yeah, I have a whole thing about that. I remember going to one class and she was going through all the chakras, and it was just really stressful because she was trying to fit it all in and she wasn't breathing, and I just felt really anxious by the end of it, and I just thought, oh, this is really unbalancing my chakra. But I think, to be fair, I think she was actually quite nervous, and she was just trying to fit it
yeah.
all in, which we've all done. We've all done that. Not
We've
pause
all
your breath
done
when
that.
you're teaching. I mean, with regards to the gym industry and yoga, I think maybe it will just plod on as it is. I don't see where else it will go,
I
really.
think so. I mean, we were chatting earlier on, and I'm just thinking, okay, if you look at the group fitness industry, um, is mind body fitness programs, are they an appropriation then?
Yeah, well, I guess yes. However, I mean, if we look at what appropriation is, then probably yes. However, the way I see it is,
Or is
when
it
I
innovation?
depends on the perspective you choose, isn't it? I know for me, my first experience of yoga was body balance, of
Mm,
a class with a bit of yoga
mm,
postures thrown in, was body balance, and I really enjoyed it, and that
mm.
led me then to go and seek traditional yoga. I
Yeah,
don't know if I'd have done that without that bridge. And
yeah.
I actually did a podcast last week with someone, and they were saying the same. He's one of my graduates. He was saying exactly the same. He did body balance and then went and sought yoga. So I
Mm,
think these things can act as a bridge, so you get more into the traditional side. So I think in that way, it's really, really positive. But
mm.
then everything's come from somewhere, hasn't it? So where do you
But that's the
draw the
thing.
line? I mean,
That's the
I
thing.
had a
Even
Chinese takeaway the other day. Maybe I shouldn't have done that. I don't know. Do you know what I mean? It's like, where do you
and Chinese takeaway, and even
very
Chinese
Chinese
takeaway
food?
owned by Chinese people, and cooked by Chinese people is still not what they would eat themselves, right?
No, no. I used to work when I was a teenager. I used to work in a burger bar, and it was owned by Chinese people, and they were like, "We would never eat this food, and we wouldn't eat Chinese food that you sell here." And they had really nice traditional food. It smelled really good, and yeah, they were just like, "Yeah, this
So are
is."
they appropriating their own? I don't
I
know.
don't know. Well, this is the thing, isn't it? You can go round and round and round in circles. Where do you draw the line?
I think, yeah, I think there's certain things that I just think, I think it's more to do with respect for me.
Yes, yes,
Respect
that's it. If
of
you're
the
mocking it or using
heritage.
it completely for your own gain or things like that, then yeah, I find if I get an icky feeling in my abdomen, something's off.
Mm,
Do
mm,
you know what I mean? But
mm,
I've been really lucky. I I don't know how I got really lucky with who I studied with yoga, because I studied with my first 200 hour that I was a student on was with Paul Dallaghan. He's in Thailand. He's still there, and he's a white Irish chap, and everything was traditional. He still teaches in that way, I believe. And I just felt really lucky. And he brought in his pranayama teacher, Sri Tiwari, from northern India. And he taught us all about the lineage. So did Paul, and about, his studies in Mysore. I felt like I was getting an Indian experience, even though he was white Irish. A very, very funny chap he is. So so that was that kind of set me up on how to, although be white, still be respectful of the tradition. And I didn't realize it at the time that's what was happening. But when I look back, I'm like, he was a very good example for me to follow. I'm really grateful for that. I got super lucky with the teachers I had.
Yeah. I think it just comes down to respect, from simple things like, you just don't put a Buddha's head on the floor, like that kind of stuff. And then you go to so many mind body holistic spaces, and there's like statues and images of Buddhas as decor, which to me, then it's not respectful. Do you see what I mean? It's so there's certain things, because
I'm going to put that out there. I have done that in the
yeah.
past.
But like but if you go to Thailand, they've got roadside banners that say Buddha's not a decor. It tells you go to the temples and they said don't touch the Buddha, and like you wouldn't, you respect the Quran. Like I'm Malaysian, so you wouldn't put the Quran on the floor. When I was at primary school, you wouldn't step over your friend's bag because they might have the Quran in it. So it's just simple things, I think, where you just, which you learn along the way, and then you just, respect once
My
you've learned.
my daughters had a play day at their friend's house the other day, and their family's Hindu. And as soon as we walked in, it felt like a temple. I was like, they had their altar there, and you could smell this beautiful incense and everything. I was like, shoes off, girls, shoes off, shoes off. Don't take your shoes in there, because they've got so many. They kind of get dragged all over the house. I was like, they were really confused, and I just hadn't considered it before we went. I was like, just keep your shoes at the door, okay? It was just instant, because the mother just looked at their feet straight away. It was just very, very obvious, So it's, had we traipsed through the house in our shoes, then that's obviously very disrespectful, because it was very obvious to take the shoes off there and then. I think it's that kind of awareness, isn't it? You like, come on, that's Get with the program a little bit. But so it's a funny old one, the yoga scene. I don't quite know where it's going. I do think it's more. I do think it's moving in a more positive way with the level of inclusivity, even though I was possibly a little negative about 10 minutes ago about it. But I feel like we have to be careful about what messages we're putting across, and just keep checking yourself. I worked with someone in London. His name was John Denoris, personal trainer, and he was like, every time you make a business decision, Sally, just check yourself, check it's right, like morally right, before you think about the money. And I remember that, and I was like, okay. And I just still remember his voice, because you can get really like, that's going to bring me that, and and that connection and that networking. But hang on a minute, he wasn't yoga, he was personal trainer, but he was still trying to work ethically. He's a very good trainer. I had a session with him, I nearly died. It was great. It was one of the best sessions I've ever done in my life. It was amazing. He's got a big, long celebrity list, and I think that's it, isn't it? And ultimately, I do think people are out there just trying to do the best they can do, and we all kind of screw up here and there, and sometimes those screw ups are down to perception as well, and what your values are.
So what does the future hold for you?
Well, I had a very busy year last year, and I was turning into one of those mums, one of those shouty mums. And I had a shouty mum. So I've decided to work a bit less on my business. Work a bit smarter rather than harder, which I think will thanks to your tips with the business coaching, is doable. So I want to be a less shouty mum and be a bit more connected to my kids. So I want more time at home. I have got a bit of travel coming up with work, but I used to travel loads. I have no intention of going back to that pre-COVID kind of level of traveling. no intention whatsoever. I'll be going away once this year for work, just teaching at a colleague's studio, and that's all I have planned for that. And then everything else is going to be local. So I've got some in person, some online, and I'm trying to focus more on filling those courses up more rather than just being a bit of a conveyor belt, because that's kind of how I was starting to feel. Just keep churning out all the yoga trainings. So my yoga trainings are quite women's focused. We've got everything from fertility through to menopause now, every cycle you can think of, and we've got training for. So just putting energy into that and trying to be a bit more like, okay, things don't have to happen today, but I could schedule it in for next week. Whereas, a couple of years ago, I'd be like, okay, I've got this long list, all has to happen today. But that's just really quite stressful. And it's only me putting pressure on myself, no one else. So I'm trying to retrain myself a little bit. I'm not going to bed with anxiety with my list not being completed. So I guess ultimately I'm just trying to be a bit nicer to myself so the business can run better and I can be a better mum, really. Because my eldest daughter's 9 on Friday. That's tomorrow, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's the last year of single figures. I can't believe that she's nearly a decade. So I don't want to, and I missed quite a lot when she was little because I was building the business, and I just don't want to do that. And you get to a point in life, you're like, I just don't want to do that anymore. I think it's the gift of perimenopause. I'm like, I'm realizing I'm getting a lot of clarity with it, in addition to quite a lot of discomfort. I'm actually getting quite a lot of clarity, and it's very pertinent to me that I'm probably over halfway through my life as well, which I know some people go, oh, that's really negative, but actually it's realistic, and it's quite a gift to realize that. And we know mutual people that have passed away in their 40s or younger, and just when they were very fit and healthy, and you just never know. And I also, with my mum passing away quite quickly in 2014, and we, when she was in the hospice, we sort of talked about things we kept meaning to do together. We kept meaning to go to theatre to see Legally Blonde because we thought it would be a laugh, and we never did it. I was always working. I always worked weekends. I know you have for years as well. And see working weekends, evenings, and it's the time you're normally social. And I just really kicked myself for that for quite a long time after. I then carried on that pattern when Bonnie was little, just building up the business too. And it's taken a while. And I thought it's taken until now to think, actually, that needs to stop now, because I've had quite a wake up. I've had several wake up calls in the last 10 years, let's say. There's another 2 bereavements in my family as well. So it's like, bit of a wake up call. My kids are getting older. Although I love my work, I do feel like I've missed out on quite a lot as well with family. So I don't want to continue that. So just trying to get, I guess, some balance.
Yeah. So would you say, so for someone starting off, if someone's listening and starting off new in the industry, what would your advice be for them?
I would say, there's quite a lot of things I could say. You have to train. Well, as a kid and as a teen, I got affected with depression quite a lot. And when I started my own business, I had to basically retrain myself to become more positive. And, I had a lot of really negative comments come my way as a kid and a teenager, lots of body image issues as a result, and anorexia, etc. So it took me quite a long time when I started my own business, which I did in my early 20s, after I graduated from uni, to retrain my brain to make me feel like I could do it. And that was quite a journey for me. So I think that's the first. I'm not saying you have to have been through what I experienced in order to have to do that, but it is a daily practice. When the voice comes in, you can't do something, to replace it with a positive voice, because without that positive dialogue going on, you won't hit it at 100% all the time. But without that dialogue, it's going to be very, very hard for you to action and execute projects. And I still have to do that now. Every morning I listen to an hour of someone talking positively on YouTube, whether it's Anthony Robbins, or I really like Real Talk Kim. She's She's hilarious. She's a preacher. She's so funny. She's been special ed. She's doing really well and stuff. She's hilarious. So sometimes I listen to her. Sometimes if I want more practical advice, I'll listen to Anthony Robbins, classic, or I might listen to some Oprah, just someone very, very positive, because I need to program myself for the day, because I can easily just go, doof. I think when you do that, people think you're positive all the time, but actually for me, it's my natural state is actually the complete opposite. So I have to, so it's still an ongoing process that I have to program the brain. So I feel like that is missed out a lot. And people tell you how you can make money, do this, do that, but you've got to be in the right mindset to do that. And there's, I think like YouTube, for example, is a brilliant platform now to find a lot of that stuff. So that would be my first thing. Find someone that speaks to you, that you connect with, and it might change through the years. I've gone through all sorts. I used to listen to a lot of Louise Hay, for example, when I was starting out. Anthony Robbins never fails to deliver. Love him, especially. So I think that's the first thing. So you need to set the mental foundation, and also then just chip away slowly. It sounds weird, but I sort of regret in a way working as hard as I did, because I missed out on a lot of things, going to gigs and things, things when you look back would actually bring a lot of value to your life. So make sure you factor in time off. And I know you've been helping me with that as well, Nancy, with the business coaching. Factor in time off. And I know in your diary you call it freedom. So I've started doing that.
Freedom. White space.
Yeah. And that's really important. Also just to top your energy levels up and give yourself a break. And I actually find my best ideas come when I'm at rest. My brain never totally switches off. I can't do it, but I'm just not programmed like that. So my best ideas and clarity come in those times. It's often when you're not actually working, those ideas to push your business forwards tend to come. And I think a lot of people are like that. You might, initially I used to take any work that came my way, just to bring the money in to afford to run the business, because there were costs incurred with that. If I was to do it again, I'd probably be a little bit more selective. I would probably take a bit of work on that I wasn't that into, because bills need to be paid, right? But I probably wouldn't say yes to everything. So be careful about being a complete yes person. And I think as women, we are programmed to do that. So you might have to do a little deep conditioning there. People don't like to say no. It's another woman you're dealing with quite often. So first of all, set your, work hard to get your mindset right in order to run the business. Be careful what you say yes to. Make sure you factor in some time off. Know you will get feedback, and it won't always be positive. Whether you invite that in or not, it's just part of it. People think, especially in the yoga world, because I've never had it in fitness. I've never had it in the fitness industry. It's always been the yoga world. I think people think you can take it, or you're a non-threatening person in front of them. They don't know the other side of me, but anyway, a non-threatening person, so they can project at you. This does happen. Protect yourself. Look at doing some energetic protection for yourself. I always, like when I get in class, just have a shower. I find that really helpful, just to wash it all off. And it's not that this happens all the time. It'll be occasionally, but I think it's human nature to remember those times, because it can be quite a lot to take on. Try not to take too much, but know that there probably will be one or two helpful things in there, even if it's with how you deal with that feedback. That I deal with it much better now than I used to, because I've had practice constructive feedback. Whenever if your thing is you want to start teaching group fitness, always have something on the sideline. Like I always have something I'm writing that I'm going to publish, for example. And that's something that will give your body a rest, but keep your mind really active, because if you start to teach the same thing over and over, which you might find you do, your brain can get a little, mine can feel quite unstimulated quite often, but I think that's an age issue. But so I've always got ideas in the background that I will chip away at. But again, know that you won't want to do it all the time. So I used to give myself a target when I was writing my first teach training manual to write one good page every other day. So if I would just think of I'd be on the bus and I'd think of a couple of sentences, put that. At the time it was BlackBerry. Do you remember BlackBerries? I forgot what it. It doesn't work. I've got it. What did I type on that? I would write a couple of sentences on the bus, jump on the tube to my classes, write a couple more sentences, and then I just, at the end of the day, email it to myself. Every 2 days, I just compile it into a Word document. And then It took a year, but by the end of the year, I had one big training moment, and I was ready to put it out there, and I launched my first training. So always have something that will push your business forward, and it doesn't have to be a big training moment. It might be an article you write. You know, and everyone, I think everyone can write some kind of article and get it published somewhere. I'm big believer. Someone somewhere will take your article and they will publish it. Even if you publish it yourself on your own website, you're still then a published writer, and then that gives you a little kudos. Then you never know, you know, a magazine might pick it up, or another website might publish it. That's how I started with my writing, and then it kind of carries on from there and starts to grow and go. But it's got to be consistent. I think that kind of effort needs to be, you know, little and often, and before you know it, you've got a whole compilation of stuff which will set you apart from other teachers. Again, if that's what you want. Not everyone is born to run their own business. Some people, I have plenty of friends who are on PAYE at the gym, they teach the class, they go home today and they're really happy with that. They don't want more than that. And that's okay too. So I think you've also got to think about what you actually want. I always want to push forwards and get that little bit further. I've got too much in my head not to write it down. So yeah, and I really, if that is the way you want to go with regards to writing and using that to boost your business, I really think anyone can do it. I was in special education at school, dyslexic, ADHD, and I've had a book published and I've written several training. So I think you just got to find your own way of doing it. I'm best if I do it in short bursts, and I'm left alone with my thoughts to do it. That's how I need to work. Whereas some people can just sit in front of a laptop for a whole day and do it. That doesn't work for me. I get too bored. I'm too fidgety. So you've just got to find, everyone can do it. You just got to find your own way. But also know you might just be also very happy just walking up at a studio, teaching class, leaving again, and chilling out with your cat or whatever. That's also completely fine. You really have to do whatever doesn't dysregulate your nervous system too much. That's I always have to check in with that. Is anxiety coming? Am I getting overtired? Am I getting shouty? Yeah, probably. So I need to rein it in a bit.
Cool.
There's constant checks, isn't it? There's constant check-ins.
Constant checks, and yeah, absolutely. Like you say, not, you know, some people are perfectly fine, you know, happy as an employee, and that's totally cool. And I think they need to be cool with that, because sometimes social media, you kind of think, oh, I should be doing more, when actually no, it's fine if you're happy. It's happy, you know, it's cool.
Yeah, and the other side of that, the flip coin of that, is like I've mentioned a couple of times, is sometimes when you're busy, it looks like, you know, you'll see someone else doing it, and you think, oh, they've got such a cushy life, they've got all this passive income and they're doing this and that. But that's the message they'll put out on social media. But don't be tricked by it. Like, I work, you know, I mean, I managed to settle down to chill for an hour at 9 o'clock at night. That's my chill time. I don't switch off until then, because that's actually quite early. It used to be midnight for years. It was that, because I'd get in class, then I'd start all my other projects. But I'm, you know, 9 o'clock, that feels like really like I'm kicking back now. I'm living the high life. So again, it's like, just be aware of that. It's never easy, but if you really want it, you'll do it. But it's just that creating that balance, that you don't make yourself unwell. And even if that unwellness is just you're getting overtired, you know, because then that can lead to injury and all sorts of other challenges. Just be careful of that, because I've gone down that path many times, and it's just I wouldn't do it again. I wouldn't do that again. I would take it a bit easier.
Definitely. If you could sum up group fitness for you in one word, what would that be?
Connection. That's what's come to my mind. Connection. And that's a deep human need, isn't it?
Yes.
That's why people like it, I think. I don't even think they're that bothered about the content sometimes. They just want to see you, your teacher. They want to see other people in the class. When I teach at David Lloyd, I'd see people meeting for coffee afterwards, and they know about each other's business. And I think that's really valuable. When I first started in fitness, there were no TVs or anything. People would talk. We would go up together to a bar in the evening. We'd have barbecues. It was so much fun. There's not much of that now, but I can see it. I think with COVID, it really brought it to the surface that actually connection is what people need. It's been proven through science now, for mental health and physical health. It's really, really necessary. So I can see, like the gym I just mentioned, is they're starting to put on a bit more social stuff, which I think is fantastic. We know people that are lonely, they die younger. That's the truth. So yeah, I think it's super important, that connection. So that's what comes to the forefront for me, connection. Yeah. And I love it too. I love people check in. They go, "Oh, I haven't seen you for a while. Are you okay? You know, how are your kids?" You know, it's really nice. I actually had someone come to class on Monday. I hadn't seen her for 10 years, and she's like, "Since I've seen you," because I've been moving around. So she goes, "Since I've seen you, I've actually done yoga with you nearly every day on YouTube." So all those years, she goes, "I've still been with you," and I just, that was really lovely. I thought that was really, really nice.
Nice.
So yeah, so there has been a connection. I wasn't aware of it, but yeah, so it's really nice. Yeah.
Cool. So in terms of connection, where with our listeners, if they want to connect with you, where can they find you?
So just my name, everything's my name. So I've got Instagram, Sally Parks Women's Yoga. I've got my website, Sally Parks Yoga, Facebook, Sally Parks Yoga. So basically, put my name in yoga, you'll find me, and we can connect that way. A YouTube channel, and I've just got we've just set up. Me and my team have just set up a new yoga platform. It's cheap as chips. It's 2-week free trial, and then it's £5 a month. Loads of content on anyone can join. The focus is women's health. So we've got everything on there from classes for menopause to pregnancy and pregnancy loss as well. I'm trying to hit all the niches that people don't necessarily want to teach. I've got some brilliant guest teachers on there too. So we're just slowly going to build that up. I'm really excited for that. I'm trying to do it like low pressure, so I'm just doing it as and when I can. It's been, so far the process has been very enjoyable, and that's on a link to that is on my website. It's called Sally Parks Yoga Club. It'll eventually have its own website, but for now it's just there. We'll be uploading some lectures on there soon, and maybe some book reviews, that kind of thing. I want that to be connection. I want that to be community. So that's what we're looking to do. So I'm open to any suggestions or feedback on that as well.
Awesome.
Anyone who wants to, certain things they want to see on there, I can film it from home, chuck it on.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you so much, Sally, for chatting. I know we've gone like round the world.
So many different directions. It's actually a very big subject, isn't it? The yoga industry and fitness industry and all the things that come with it. So it's actually a massive subject.
Well, we love it. We love the whole, like you say, it's, oftentimes it's about love. It's about connection, isn't it? With other people, other wonderful humans. So yeah,
definitely.
And so thank you so much
for doing this. I mean, it makes me tired. I just feel very lucky to do it. And I think that's the thing as well. You have to remember, I try and remind myself every time I teach, I'm actually really lucky to be doing this. I'm able to move my body in this way and be here with these people is and earn my own money. There's plenty of countries where women can't do that. So it's like, it's quite a privilege really to do it. We're in a good life doing this.
We're doing good. Awesome. So thank you very much.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
It's been good.
Thank you so much. Bye everyone.